Hi, I'm Bill Osborne, City Manager in Douglasville. Join me today for another edition of On the Agenda. Today I will be speaking to one of our City Council members about some key issues impacting our community. Thank you for joining me today for On the Agenda. I'm Bill Osborne, City Manager. I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations of the City of Douglasville government. In a recent episode of On the Agenda, I pointed out that the city is governed by a 7-member City Council along with the Mayor, and I noted that in upcoming editions of On the Agenda, I would be speaking to each of those elected officials. My guest today is Michael Carter, a member of the City Council. Councilman Carter is completing 4 years on the City Council, deciding not to seek re-election. He's been the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Committee and the Transportation Committee, the vice chairman of the Public Safety Committee. And we'll be talking with Councilman Carter today. Let me point out that our City Council has 8 different committees. These report at each council meeting. We have committee meetings. In addition to Councilman Carter, each of the other council members are the chair of 1 or 2 committees. And that's how most of our work is done in public safety, community and economic development, maintenance and sanitation, parks and recreation. And so a lot of work gets done by the mayor and the city council members even before we get to the regular meetings of the city council. Now, I would remind each of you that if you have an interest in coming to a city council meeting, you certainly are invited to do so. We meet the first and third Mondays in each month at 7:30. Legislative work sessions are the preceding Thursday nights at 7:30. For more information, if you will go to our website, which is www.ci.douglasville.ga.us. I'll repeat that, www.ci.douglasville.ga.us. Delighted to have you today for this edition of On the Agenda. And when we come back, I'll be speaking with Councilman Michael Carter. My special guest today is Councilman Michael Carter. Councilman Carter, it's a pleasure to have you on the agenda. You, of course, have been on the City Council for the past 4 years, now in the final month of service to this community. And it's a pleasure to have you here as you conclude your service to the city as a member of City Council. But 4 years ago, when you ran for the City Council, of course, you captured a seat that was being vacated by one of the council members at that time, Doug LaGuire, who ran for mayor. What made you decide to seek public office?
Well, as normally happens in politics, I suppose, when you have a perception that something isn't going the way that you need it to go or think it should go, that's when people get upset and end up running for political office. Basically, the reason why I ran is, in my estimation, Douglasville was growing in an area of multifamily or high-density residential growth, and I felt like the direction needed to change.
And certainly the voters agreed with the stance that you had taken in the campaign because you won election very easily. You came onto the City Council. What were your expectations as you became a member of the City Council?
Oh, that I'd be able to waltz in here and fix all the problems in a day. But obviously that doesn't happen. This is government and there are so many hoops that you have to jump through. It just kind of works out that the expectations of being able to fix something expediently were shattered, quite frankly, and more along reality lines of let's just see if we can get down to business and focus on the problem at hand and take it one step at a time.
Right. And as you looked at the problem at hand or the challenges that you had as you came in, what did you see as some of the key challenges or some of the key problems to deal with?
Well, one of the problems that I felt like we had were the growth in our community. We were just growing with no expectation or realization of what we wanted to grow as. It was just, if you wanted to do it, do it. We needed to have some sort of qualification or criteria as to the kind of growth that we wanted. The growth is inevitable. We live in a suburb of metro Atlanta. You know the growth is going to come. Our job was to direct that growth and make it the best it could be.
Right. And when you came on the city council with those views as being at the top of your priority list, I'm sure you were pleased that Mayor Thompson, who looked at you, a freshman coming on the city council, but made you the chairman of two of the most important committees on city council, certainly two that deal with growth, one being the transportation committee and the one being the planning and zoning committee. So as you looked at that task, what went through your mind? What did you feel about taking on those two assignments?
Well, you asked for it, you got it. Kind of one of those situations. I was excited. I felt like that the mayor had enough confidence in me he knew my personality as being someone, I like to fix things. I don't care about recognition or any of those things. I just want the problem fixed. And that's my directive. And once I set forth on a task, that's what I want to do. And I felt like that I have, or not just myself, but myself and the mayor and the city council and yourself and the staff of the city, we have all taken those steps and gone in the direction that the mayor and council wanted to go in order to fix the problems.
Right. Now, we want to talk about some of those things on this program, but before we move on looking at the past, you had to make a decision a few months ago, and you decided not to run for re-election. Would you share with us why you decided that?
Yes, sir. Part of my personality is if I'm going to take on a task, I'm going to take it on 100%. And I am going to work as diligently as possible in order to achieve the goals that I set. That involves a lot of time, a lot of meetings, and my children are growing up. My daughter is 10 and my son is 8. They're starting to get more active now in their lives of soccer and baseball and basketball and piano. And when your kids look at you and say, "Daddy, do you really have to go to another meeting tonight?" It makes that decision kind of easy.
Right. Well, you certainly will be missed, and of course your successor will be Terry Miller. In fact, Council Member-elect Miller will be the only new member of the City Council. What advice, though, have you given Council Member-elect Miller as he gets ready to come on the City Council?
It's just 4 meetings a month. That's all it is. That's what I was sold. No, I told Councilman Miller, or Councilman-elect Miller, that he should expect to work hard and be diligent and look after all the answers that or try and find all the answers to a problem independently, as opposed to just taking someone's word for what could or could not be the solution. Independently find out those answers.
Right. And as you look back over your past 4 years, what do you consider the biggest problems that city government has had to face, and how would you describe the stance of this local government's efforts to deal with some of those problems?
Some of the problems that we had, as we mentioned earlier, were the explosive growth that we were entertaining. And one of the problems, or the way that we solved that, is we redefined our zoning code and we redid our future land use plan. And we've stuck to it, and we can go into that a little further later on. But we also had a financial situation that we had to work through, to where, quite frankly, we were expending more money than we were bringing in. So we had to correct that problem, and that was a difficult thing to do, but the mayor and council stood strong, and we, with the support of the city staff, came through that time, and we're in one of the best financial situations that we've ever been in right now.
Right. So I think as you look back on your 4 years, then while no one ever accomplishes all they set out to accomplish, I think you can look back and realize that you did make some differences in what was taking place in our community.
Yes, sir. I can directly correlate that with the first chairmanship that I have was planning and zoning. We had a lot of multifamily growth, as we mentioned earlier, and part of that was due to our zoning classifications that we had. We allowed high density growth. Well, one of the first things that we did when we came into office was basically we changed the menu. If you go to McDonald's, you can't order a prime rib. They don't have it. So if you don't have those zoning classifications on the offering, people can't ask for it.
Right.
And that was one of the largest things that we did, was we took out the R6 zoning, or 6 houses per acre, and the highest density that we have now is an R3 for a single family home. So we cut that in half. Our highest density classification, we dropped it in half. And not only did we do that, but if you ask for those R3, we then instituted development standards on there that said if you're going to build a house on a smaller lot, we want a nicer house. And that has dramatically taken effect, and I think you could see it now in the tributary development that we have down in the eastern part of the county.
Right, I agree with that. And, you know, looking ahead now, 1st of January, where you've been accustomed to coming up to City Hall for a number of meetings, you will not have to do that. But I know that what you've been working on, you simply don't discard that as being something you have an interest in. As you look ahead in 2008, what do you see as some of the challenges that the colleagues that you're leaving behind will have to deal with?
Well, as with everything, you move forward and you tackle some things and you take on new things. We've got several large issues that we have in our community. Number one, and we'll go into this a little later, I think, is our Vice Chair of Public Safety. We need a new public safety facility. We've taken the steps to purchase the property for that facility, but now we have to figure out how to fund it and build it. Right. Our police department is in desperate need of it, and the council's got to figure out how to make that happen. We've also got communication issues down in the New Manchester area that we're going to have to figure out how to fund and build a tower. Right. We've got a conference center that we're looking to expand. It has been a phenomenal asset to the city of Douglasville, and we are in the process of redoing that, as well as the master plan that we've started for the downtown Douglasville area so that we can revitalize this area in response to the grants that we've gotten to do the plazas. So those are some of the larger things that they've got to look forward to.
Right. Of course, you serve at this time on the Board of Directors of the Cultural Arts Council. You've been on the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. You've been active in this community for a number of years. As you look at your experience here in city government for these 4 years and look at the other things in which you've been involved in, what would you recommend that the city, the chamber, the CAC, and the groups look at in terms of how we move this community forward?
I think the Cultural Arts Center gives us a lot back with the events that they host on the plaza, and it's a give and take relationship with them. Same with the Chamber of Commerce. We work together, but as in some instances, the Chamber, although they are a very good friend to the city, they are also a membership representative group. And sometimes we sit up here and we make some decisions that may affect the business group, and it's their job to tell us, hey, you know, this is what you're doing to the business world out here, and can you retake a look at it? So I think that there's a very good relationship between all of our entities that we have here that makes us be able to progress and work forward to make this the better community.
Right. Let me switch, if I can, for just a minute, and from a personal standpoint to you, tell us a little bit about your family, where you went to college, how you came to Douglasville, what kind of hobbies you've had other than council meetings, and so forth.
Okay. Well, I'm happily married honey, I think it's been 18 years. We have 2 children, like I said, my daughter Alexis, who's 10, whose soccer team just finished second in the Sugar and Spice tournament, and my son, who is 8, who is wide open and loves to run and play and have a ball. My parents live in Georgia as well. They have recently moved up to North Georgia. But we moved down here in 1991 after I graduated college from Virginia Tech. Go Hokies. My wife found the first job out of college, quite frankly. That's how we made it down here. And just made this our home, and we've loved it here. It's been a great time. Some of my hobbies are, like I said, I'm a fixer. I like to do woodworking. I like to build things. I like to have things that I can say, you know, I did that. That's good. I like to fly fish and play soccer as well.
And I know if you look at what you studied in college, that as you started your professional career, then you, like many people do, decided to make a change to become an owner of a small business of your own. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that, and tell us about your business, including the fact that starting in January, you'll actually be able to spend a lot of time working on it.
That'll be a nice thing, to be able to. You know, the scary thing about being a block and a half away from City Hall is I was a block and a half away from City Hall, and everybody could find me when they wanted me because they knew where I was going to be. My business, I have a promotional products company that puts corporate logos on pens, pencils, cups, mugs, that sort of thing, and we started that business in 1998. Before that, I was a manufacturer's representative for a golf shirt company and a t-shirt company, and I traveled the southeastern United States. I would leave on Monday and come back on Friday. When my wife became pregnant with our first child, I didn't want to leave on Monday and come back on Friday anymore, so we took a leap of faith and started our business here, and it's gone gangbusters.
Great.
So I'm excited, and for anyone who has ever had the opportunity to hire your father, my dad just retired from his other business, and I have just rehired him as a salesman, and trying to retrain your dad is very interesting, but rewarding as well.
Our guest today is City Councilman Michael Carter, who represents Ward 5, the Post 2 position. When we come back, we'll be talking about some specific things he has had to work on as the chairman of two of the most important committees on the City Council.
City TV, bringing Douglasville and Douglas County a new look at government TV. With Ask the Mayor. On the agenda, the police report, the lineup, and City Council meeting broadcasts. City TV, programming for our citizens.
Welcome back to On the Agenda. My special guest today is Michael Carter, a member of the Douglasville City Council. Councilman Carter is leaving the City Council at the end of calendar 2007 after a very successful four-year term in which he's been the chairman of two of the major committees of the City Council, the Transportation Committee and the Planning and Zoning Committee. If you were to ask the average person on the street to identify perhaps the major problem in our community, they'd probably say congestion, things related to transportation. Obviously, close behind that or somewhat equal to it would be dealing with growth issues, economic development, perhaps overdevelopment in some things that people would look at. But Councilman Carter's had to really be in the middle of all of this. And so I would like, if you could, as we start with transportation, to give us your perspective of where we've been, where we are, and where we try to need to go in Douglasville in the transportation arena.
Well, where we've been is we've been fighting for funds to build new roads. Where we are is we've been fighting for funds to build new roads, and where we're going to be is fighting for funds to build new roads. It is not an easy thing in order to build a road. We have just finished Hospital Drive in the area between Highway 92 and Chapel Hill Road, the widening, the 4 lanes, and I think everyone who has seen that road has been very grateful that we've done that, because it's made a phenomenal difference in the traffic area along that area. We've got Highway 92 that has finally, knock wood, I don't know what's going to be projected behind me, on a funding source so that we can hopefully build this $80 million project in the city of Douglasville. I mean, this thing is going to be a phenomenal project that we've had. We've been working on that since 1990, 1991?
In the late, well, certainly the mid-1990s.
Mid-1990s, trying to get this done. And to give you an average or an idea of funding and what we as a city council are trying to do, the average road project in the state of Georgia takes 54 months to plan and implement. Now that is just a normal, regular road problem. In 2004, the Georgia Department of Transportation had $4.9 billion budgeted for road improvements. That might seem like a lot. We had 159 counties that asked for over $9 billion worth of transportation projects. So if you've already got more projects than you have funding for, that's a problem. Then the price of petroleum went up and the cost of doing business went up about 41%, so you cut that in half again. Now imagine trying to go back and get funding for programs. The funding is always the issue. We fight on it and fight on it and fight on it. And we've gone down. We have a very good working relationship with DOT Chairman Linenthal and our regional DOT area. And I think that they have shown that commitment to the city of Douglasville and Douglas County as a community in the amount of funding that they are sending our way. It is something that we are always doing and always working on. We have the Bright Star Road connector that we're looking to, we've just finished engineering. We're getting ready to hopefully start the implementation and construction of it from Highway 5 over to Bright Star Road so that we can alleviate a little bit of that traffic. So,
And I think as you've talked, you know, for all of us, one of the biggest problems of dealing with transportation issues is just the frustration you have of how long it takes. And sometimes I know each of us think, you know, we ought to be able to compress this down. And of course, one of the problems is that we're not the only player in the game.
Right.
There's so much that has to be done by GDOT, as you say, by the Atlanta Regional Commission, a lot of fingers in the pie. But as you've looked over the last 4 years, what would you identify as the major accomplishments that the city has had and you've had in the area of transportation? And if you maybe even just going back to identify briefly a couple that you've already mentioned.
well, the Highway 92 is going to be one of the biggest changes that we've seen in this community when that finally goes through, and I believe right-of-way acquisition is supposed to start in July of this upcoming year.
Right.
So we're looking at, they say they can do it in 3 years. I hope they can.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. The Hospital Drive widening, again, the Bright Star Road connector that we're getting ready to do, the synchronization of traffic lights on Chapel Hill Road, Douglas Boulevard, and Highway 5. That has taken a while to do, but the governor gave us a synchronization program for the state, and we've finally gotten everything linked up through fiber optics, and it's a little, hopefully you've seen, it's a little easier to move through those intersections right now. We did intersection improvements at Douglas Boulevard and Chapel Hill Road, where about three holidays ago it was almost impossible to move through there, but now you should see a dramatic improvement and be able to move around during this holiday season. We didn't have any difficulties last year, and hopefully we won't again this year.
Right. Any parting words of advice to your colleagues on the City Council in the area of transportation?
Keep fighting. Don't give up. One of the largest things, another thing that we're doing right now, as you may see out in the community, is we are doing intersection improvements. Intersection improvements is a creative way to get around having to do full-blown engineering studies and environmental studies. If you just improve intersections down the way, you don't have to basically get all the federal, state, and local agencies involved in widening an entire road. Keep doing that. Right. Keep as much BLOST as you can and do as much that you can with it.
Right. In addition to your two chairmanships, of course, you were vice chairman of the Public Safety Committee, and you mentioned a few minutes ago about the city working toward the construction of a public safety municipal court building. You want to comment on that?
Yes. We have an excellent police force. We have a great police chief in Joe Wisnett, and I can't tell you how great the response time is for our police department. We have one of the safest communities in Metro Atlanta, and they do a wonderful job. I think everyone who has ever had to call on the police will testify to their professionalism and what they do on an everyday basis. One of the things that we desperately need to do is get this police facility constructed. They are in 5 different buildings right now and have been so for several years. And we need to make this building so that we can move forward in the future for growth. And that's the way we have it designed, is it'll handle growth for the next 20 years. So my plea to the City Council is don't stop trying. Figure out a way to fund it and make it work.
Right. Very good. Let's talk a little bit about growth, quality of life, development, fears of overdevelopment, planning and zoning. You've had to deal with all of these and more as chairman of the City Council Planning and Zoning Committee. Describe some of the major things which have happened during the past 4 years in the area of planning, zoning, growth management.
Okay. Well, first let me go back and address a couple of instances that I always hear from people in this room on a zoning matter. First thing I'd like to say is you're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. We have people that come in here that have relocated from all other places in the country. You have relocated to one of the only two states in the United States that is a property right state, Alabama being the other, Georgia and Alabama. We are different. We are different from wherever you move from. If you didn't move from Alabama or anywhere else in Georgia, it's going to be different. By having a property right state, that means the property owner is in the driver's seat with what they want to do with their property. And it's up to us to try and figure out if that is a valid use. And by law, if we can determine that no, that's not a valid use, or yes, it is a valid use. But we can't just unilaterally say no. We have to have a reason and a finding in order to do so. Traffic, one of the #1 instances that we have in front of us. It's going to create too much traffic. By Georgia state law, we're not allowed to deny a rezoning because of traffic. We just can't do it. Another one is there's already enough commercial development. By Georgia state law, we cannot deny something on the basis that there is just too much commercial development, because that's not for us to determine. That is for the property owner to determine. And for the schools, for overcrowding, we're not allowed to deny a zoning because of the overcrowding of the schools. It's unfortunate, but those are the hands that we've been dealt with, and that's what we've got to play with. So having those cards, like I said before, one of the things you can change is the zoning code. You actually take away the amount of property or the amount of zoning categories that are available. We now have an R1, R2, and R3 zoning. So instead of an R6 for a single-family residential, we cut that in half. We haven't had an apartment complex newly rezoned in the 4 years that I've been here. We've got enough. A community needs to be comprised of all types of housing, from starter housing to mid-grade housing to the higher-end housing. Because if you're in a situation where all you have are starter homes, then where do people go when they want to move up? When it's time to upgrade from that starter house and go forward, where do you go? Well, 4 years ago, we were in a position that they were leaving this community because we didn't have the upgrades that were there. We have taken the steps on the development code to ensure that there are going to be mid-level houses and quality places for people to dwell. Another thing by Georgia state law, you can't tell someone that you've got to build a $300,000 house. It's illegal to do that. But you can put enough development codes on there where after they build it, it'll be a $300,000 house. There's always a way around it. You just got to figure out the way. In 2004, we implemented the future land use plan, and that will determine the 20-year growth of our community. We have stuck to that future land use plan, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't think I am, but we have only made exceptions on that future land use plan 3 times since it's been implemented, and those were for annexations that we had to add, and 1 mistake.
All right. As you look back over the time that you've been the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Committee, how do you want to be remembered?
I'd like to be remembered as someone who tried to be the catalyst to upgrade development, to raise the bar, to set the standard, and to say that if we're going to have development here, it might as well be good development. It might as well be something that you can be proud of. And that's what I'd like to be remembered for. That's it.
And in the area of quality growth, any parting words to your fellow council members as they move forward in 2008?
Demand excellence. You don't have to have anything less. Stick to it and make this the best community that it can be. Don't give up.
Now, for those of you who have been at a city council meeting, you know one of the last items on the agenda is that the mayor asked if I, as city manager, have any reports to make or any comments to make. So as we get ready to close this session of On the Agenda, I'll ask Councilman Carter, any closing comments that you'd like to make?
Only that it has been a privilege and an honor to serve the citizens of Douglasville, and it has been a wonderful experience to work with you, Bill. Thank you very much.
Right.
You have done an excellent job as being city manager for the city of Douglasville, as well as the city employees. The elected officials are transient. We'll be here for 4 years, maybe longer. The staff and the people who run the city on a day-to-day basis are the ones that take their marching orders from us, and they're the ones that implement it. And without them, city council is only as good as their employees, and I think we've got a great staff for the city.
Well, thank you, Councilman Carter. I accept those comments both for myself and for my fellow staff members, but it's been a great pleasure to have you today on the agenda, and all of us certainly wish you a most successful career as a former city council member.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for joining us today for this edition of On the Agenda. I hope you've learned about growth management, some growth issues, transportation, all of the things that the City Council has to deal with here in Douglasville. We will be talking about other subjects in the coming weeks and months, and hope you will stay tuned in for future editions of On the Agenda.